What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit more of a long form video going through the offseason to show you guys what's different about the offseason in Madden 23. I've been getting a lot of comments actually asking about different things going on within the offseason. One of the biggest complaints being that users are seeing free agents signing with teams without the week advancing or anything like that, and people want to know what's going on with that. So without further ado, I'm going to try to go through an entire offseason here and show you everything as the commissioner of this file that you're going to need to know with a minimal cutting and anything like that. I want you guys to get the full details, and I'll consider making a more short form, concise video later on talking about everything, but I want this to be available to you so you can see everything that's possibly going on within offseason. First and foremost here, offseason is now classified as right after the Super Bowl. So before, there was kind of a disconnect between the offseason staff and re-signed players week and the actual offseason, which started during the free agency phase. But now it's all kind of more meshed together, so your offseason is technically starting at the offseason staff week. During the offseason staff week, what's going to happen is you're going to get probably a pop-up for upgrade players, and what generally happens at this point is your entire practice squad is signed now to your main roster. So you'll get a lot of those lower overall players, and I've simmed forward, so I don't actually have any of these upgrades applied yet, but a lot of these guys are actually going to be practice squad players that are now signed to your team because you just hit the offseason. So they're technically signed on for the next year on your main roster, not on your practice squad anymore. So that is an important first note to keep in mind, and that's where you'll see a lot of these players that are low 60 overalls and things like that, whoever was on your practice squad being signed to your team. In the managed staff phase, you're going to, like I said, have that upgrade players option more than likely, but then you're also going to get this option for your staff. And you're going to get the options here to be able to fire your offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. If you're an owner, you can fire your head coach and hire a new one. That is all going to be available for you here in this stage, and that's what this stage pretty much serves to do for you. Now, you can add offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators at any point. Just because there's a specific week for it does not mean you can't do it in other weeks. You can still do it later on. You're probably just going to miss out on all of the good offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators that were potentially cut by other teams and are now available to you. Advancing to the next stage, you're going to get another mock draft pop up, and this is going to be probably the most accurate to what your teams looked like after the playoffs. And then you're going to get to see the 2022 retirements, and you're going to be able to negotiate with any players that you need to re-sign for the next season. In this re-sign phase, this is where things get a little bit different from prior Maddens, where you get to negotiate with your players, and they're going to have different interests now. So we certainly want to keep in mind that there are some different factors at play here than there have been in the past. So this screen is very much similar to the past in that you can negotiate the number of years, the salary, the bonus, all of that good stuff. It's going to give you an offer breakdown showing you the breakout over the next few years, the total amount and things like that, and how much remaining cap you would have after making this deal. However, what it's also going to give you now on the right side is how much the players' motivations are impacting their ability to sign with your team. So for example here, Terrell Edmonds has the close to home player motivation, and it's giving me a lot of green on that, which means that's positively influencing him to want to sign with the team. However, he wants to play in warm weather. Pennsylvania's not warm weather. He's giving a pretty big negative in that category, and then he has historic championships, which is giving a little bit of a green in that category as well. Overall, in the bottom right, it's then going to give you an interest level in your team. Now, the other nice option here with the contract system is you get a predetermined few different types of contracts that you can offer this player. So this takes away some of the thinking of it if you don't want to spend as much time and detail on it if you're not one of those types of users. So you can now offer a team-friendly contract, a neutral, a player-friendly, or a very player-friendly contract, and that is going to have various different risks associated with it. You can also submit just a straight-up custom offer. That ability hasn't been taken away from you. But it's nice that it gives you the information right here that you're going to need whenever you're considering these offers. So a team-friendly contract is high risk because you're going to be looking to pay them less money. It's great for cap space, but the player is unlikely to accept that contract. On the other hand of things, a very player-friendly contract is very low risk because you're going to be paying them a lot of money, very high acceptance chance, but you're overpaying for the player. So that's that risk reward, and it's going to adjust the numbers below there for those different types of contracts, and that's going to give you a good jumping off point. One of the recommendations that I want to throw in here is to at least tab through these to see what they look like. So you're going to start off on neutral, tab up to player friendly or very player friendly and look at those contracts and then adjust from there. Let's say, for example, I want to have a very low risk of this player not signing with me. I can look at that player friendly contract and then I can then adjust it from there. Let's say I'm not necessarily comfortable with that bonus. I can take it down a little bit, and that's going to put me in an in-between margin, not necessarily going with a lower offer that's going to be more high risk. That gives you a jumping off point, and it's going to still be around the offers that were considered very player friendly, or whatever you're starting as your negotiation point. If you're starting at neutral and you want to make it just a tiny bit more favorable to the player, you can do that, and then maybe say we increase the bonus money a little bit from there. And then we go into off-season free agency week 1, which is where the majority of issues are going to come into play that you're going to want to be aware of. So first and foremost here, we're going to get to see our combine results for prospects. That's going to be related to the draft. That's fantastic. And then you get the option to go out and actually sign free agents. But there's something very important here for you guys to keep in mind, and that is the evaluate offers ability here. This is not going to pop up for most of you as a user if you are not the commissioner of a franchise. You will notice at the bottom of my screen it says negotiate, sort, view player card, eval offers, help, and back. The eval offers thing is absolutely crucial because this can trigger players to evaluate their contract offers without having to advance the week. And as it shows there at the bottom, in week 1, we have 3 eval offers. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how that works. If I were to click one eval offer right now, what's going to happen is the players that have contracts offers negotiated out to them, they're going to then evaluate those offers. So as of right now, we have no players signed within free agency. If I click eval offers, it is then going to simulate. It's going to say contracts reviewed, players have evaluated submitted offers. I go over to sign, and we now see that a bunch of players have signed with teams. And that's exactly what can be a major issue in franchise mode if you don't have commissioners that are controlling this appropriately. So what this presents an issue for is, let's say I wanted to go free agency just opened up and I want to submit an offer to Daron Payne. I can submit a, for example, very player friendly offer to Daron Payne, and without ever giving anybody else a chance, I can then hit eval offers again, and then that is going to evaluate that offer, and he's going to sign with whatever team. Now, he didn't sign with me, but the problem arises that whenever you hit that eval offers button, players are going to evaluate the contracts that have been offered to them. So what you might see happen in some leagues is a commissioner comes in, puts in their offers, and quickly hits eval offers so that they can get the players that they want without you having the ability to get those players. That's a huge problem. Now, what you can do is you can play free agency like you used to and not do any of the eval offers. You can advance the week by week, and players will review their offers whenever you tick over from one week to the next. We do have a couple other levels of detail to go over here before we advance to the next week, though. The first thing that I'd like to go over is in the top left-hand corner. It says that you have 5 active negotiations, and that is exactly correct. So you can offer 5 players contracts, and then you can evaluate offers, and you will then be able to offer 5 more contracts if your active negotiations have all been resolved, meaning that player has signed with your team or another team. So in theory, during free agency phase 1, 1, you're going to have the ability to have 15 total contract offers at the most that you're going to be able to utilize if you are utilizing the eval offers option or your league is using that option. One other thing that I want to go over here in stage 1 of free agency is the little bit of symbols and information that you're going to get surrounding these players. You now have an interest bar from all of the players in free agency, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. This is a nice addition, and you can immediately see who's going to be potentially interested in signing with your team. In addition to this, you now have a negotiation status thing on the left side. So you're going to get statuses here with X's if a player has signed with a different team. You're going to get this little symbol that you might have picked up on before if you are negotiating with a player. It's going to be 2 arrows. And if a player signs with your team, you're going to get something very different from that. Let me go ahead and sign a player. Hopefully we can get one of these players to sign with us. That way I can actually show you what that symbol is going to look like. So players have now evaluated offers, and there we go. We now have a check mark on Kareem Hunt and Calvin Ridley because they've decided to sign with our team. One little caveat here to note is that a player doesn't have to have super high interest in your team to sign with your team. For example, Kareem Hunt is orange and Calvin Ridley was almost as close to the bottom as you could be in red, and they were still both going to sign with the team. One additional bit of information, or a couple additional bits of information, are up at the top of the various different tabs that you have. You now have availability to more information. So you can see all free agents within the free agency page. You can scroll by position using the left trigger or L2. You can also use the right bumper or R1 or L1 in the left bumper to go between tabs here to see what different information is available to you. So instead of looking at all players and having to go through the negotiation status, I can look at all available players by going over to that tab. I can look at players that I am targeting, players that I'm actively putting offers in on, and I can look at players that I have signed and players that the league has signed. They did a really nice job of breaking these things up so that you can see exactly what you want to look at without a whole lot of extra effort. And just one final piece of information before we advance to free agency week 2, I do have to go over this bit of information that I made a specific video on, which is how to undo signings and transactions. You can now go to the league transactions page in the off season only and click on a signing to undo it. So for example here, the Bears signed free agent outside linebacker Ola Adeniyi, and that's a 3-year $9.2 million contract. As a commissioner, I can press undo on that signing and it will undo that transaction, putting that player back into the free agency market. That is something that you certainly want to be aware of because again, that's something that can be used to your advantage or commissioners can abuse it. Again, that's a combination of things that could happen there that could go very south. Let's say a commissioner is corrupt and they want a player that you signed. What they could do is they could undo that signing and then they could put a bid in and immediately evaluate offers and that player ends up on their team. So you have to be on the lookout for some shady things going on here in offseason because of the way that they've structured it now. And now we're getting to the last bits of information, and that is simply how many active negotiations you can have in these final couple weeks of free agency. Here in stage 2 of free agency, you can have 10 active negotiations. I'm going to click eval offers again, and that is going to give 10 more active negotiations. I'm going to hit it again, 10 more active negotiations, and then I hit it again, and that has evaluated all the offers. And then when we get to the final stage of free agency, you actually have unlimited active negotiations, which is going to be helpful for filling out your roster here at the end of the offseason, at the end of free agency. Beyond this, there's not much else new to the offseason. They've updated scouting and things like that. We can make a separate video on it. There's a lot of videos out there talking about it, but again, you're going to come to offseason free agency recap where you can look at who's signed where. You get a scouting opportunity for private workouts, and then you're quickly going to go to the NFL draft. You're going to get an offseason recap cap after that where players can adjust their roster, and you're going to be into the next preseason. So I do hope that this information was helpful to you guys. I really hope that you guys will leave a like if it was, comment, and subscribe. As always, be aware of these potential issues within franchise mode in the offseason, but nonetheless, I think the positives here outweigh the negatives. I like the potential that this new system has. I do think that it is a big step forward in the right direction. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. As always, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.